We'll give a minute or two.
Rama, how will we know when we are being seen live?
Yeah, yeah. So, right. So we are live. I think we are. Yes, I think we are almost live. Rama, shall we start?
No, we are not yet live.
The broadcast team.
And also, when should I switch on the video? Like, should we keep it off? First only Rama speaks and.
No, you are starting, na, Sukanya?
I'm starting. Okay, I didn't see the latest flow. I just wanted to confirm. So, whom do I hand it over to? Rama, I'll hand it over to you.
To me. No, Anand, Raman Anand is there. He is going to coordinate.
Yes, Rama.
Can you tell me the sequence, please? If I am starting, just
so Mr. Sheni will give the opening note. Following, you can come in, give an overview of the IT.
You on cyber, you talk on the overall GCC.
No, I just say, why is this report, why do we believe, as NASCOM, we believe we need to spend effort on this report, right? And as an industry, I think it's...
Ms. Rama, may I request, can we start with the session? We're live. So we're almost live, so I'll start off, if that's okay with everyone.
This is Srini Podraju from KPMG. Welcome to Secure in India 2020 report launch and GCC Roundtable. I really want to thank everyone for your valuable time. This is the second edition of Secure in India. We did the first one in 2018. Welcome to Secure in India 2020, the second edition. Anand, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivas, for setting the context. Welcome everyone to the second version of the GCC report. For the initiation of the session, may I request Ms. Sukanya to give the keynote or the welcome address and set context for the GCC report.
Thank you, Anand. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our discussion today. Before I start, I really want to thank our industry leaders who've contributed to this report, and it's the valuable inputs from the industry that really make this report valuable. And of course, the DSCI and KPMG for leading the way and thought leadership. Secure in India is a key interest area. Cybersecurity is a key interest area from NASCOM. It's one of the future skills that NASCOM has defined as a priority, and we believe is really going to be key to shaping the GCC strategy for the future. We have, as NASCOM, we've been extremely focused on seeing how we can support our GCC ecosystem to build the required capability and skills. And on an ongoing basis, we will ensure that we put in a lot of thought and value in this area. Now, the report was launched earlier in 2018, was very well received by the industry, but I can't stress how much timely and significant is the 2020 report, because if one thing COVID has proven is the need for cybersecurity, the need for all of us to be in a secure environment and being able to do our work productively and safely. And an interesting aspect why cybersecurity especially also becomes important for the India GCCs is very often we hear, from our global counterparts that, hey, the India center is really good at its work, but it's not necessarily very close to the customer, and hence they may not understand the customers very well. Interesting note on cybersecurity is a large part of your cybersecurity users or beneficiaries are actually your own employees, people who work in the GCC and the larger part of the organization, and of course your end customers, which means that the barrier to understanding the customer is slightly less when it comes to this capability, and hence an excellent opportunity for GCCs to be able to take it up and fly with it. And if, as we go through this report, we understand how this capability has matured across GCCs and how it's added so much of value. And we just hope that with initiatives around future skills building and thought leadership and all the initiatives the DSCI takes up, this capability becomes a center stage in India and it really shines through. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Hope you'll find the insights and the discussions very insightful. And of course, the report will be available to all of you through our various websites. Over to you, Anand. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Sukanya, for that setting the context for the report. Now, I would request Mr. Akhilesh Treja, KPMG Global Leader and Cyber Head for Digital, to end Mr. Rama Vedeshri, CEO DSCI, Ms. Sukanya, who is Director of NASSCOM GCC, and Mr. Srinivas to come on screen along with Mr. Ram and Mr. Oscar for launching the report.
So, Anand, Akhilesh is facing a technical glitch. I think meanwhile, why don't we get started with Rama's keynote, and when he comes in, we can do the...
Sure. May I request Mr. Rama Vedeshri, CEO DSCI, to speak a few words on the GCC report as a welcoming address.
Yeah. Thank you, Anand. And my colleague Sukanya, who leads the GCC division in NASSCOM, set the right context. We in DSCI, as you know, we are pursuing this mission of making India a global hub for cybersecurity. In that, growing the cyber GCCs in India is one of our key charters, along with, of course, growing the security services and product industry from India. And we've had the opportunity and privilege to engage very deeply with the cyber GCCs and the CISOs of global corporations in India. One thing that we in DSCI have noticed, we've done this report, the last report, it's a timely revision that we have done. The idea is to understand what it takes for a global corporation to evaluate and prefer India as a destination for their cyber GCCs. That is the primary goal and objective. As DSCI team engages with GCCs, I would like to personally thank the entire cyber GCC leadership who engaged with us on several initiatives. Particularly over the last 2-3 years, we have, both the NASSCOM policy team and the DSCI team policy team, have seen GCC leaders and policy specialists talk to us, deliberate with us, which actually gives an insight into some of the challenges they may be facing to expand in India or invest in India. So those inputs have been very valuable when we looked at the non-personal data committee report or the personal data bill. There were several deliberations. So we are increasingly seeing GCC cyber leaders participate in the discussions, whether it is on the cyber strategy, which is something that we would like to thank you all. As KPMG has partnered with us the last time, this time also Akhilesh's team And there was a big team, which I'm sure Akhilesh will talk about. Srinivas, Sangram, Manoj, and there's a whole army of researchers. We've seen that when there is a very wide stakeholders from the industry invest in a country, there is an overall uplift of the cyber capability of the industry in that country, because it is not only the GCC leaders, then there is a services and there's a startup and the products ecosystem. In the last 2 years, we've also seen several GCC teams take initiatives like Women in Security, nurturing women professionals to be attracted to cybersecurity, doing a lot of talent development activities like hackathons, privacy days, privacy day, privacy challenges. Many GCC teams have also engaged with us on sharing their use cases, because they deal with a lot of complex use cases globally, because they have a global footprint. Give us those use cases which we are able to share with startups to build solutions. And this is an overall ecosystem contribution that they're doing, apart from, of course, they're leading the cyber risk mitigation for their global headquarters, but they're also doing a lot in the country in terms of working with educational institutions, doing a lot of hackathons, supporting young startups, supporting young women professionals in their career development. And I also see a lot of experts and specialists from cyber GCCs come and talk in third-party conferences in DSCI's workshops, which I think overall contributes to the practitioners and knowledge sharing within the community, which is something that I would particularly place on record appreciation from NASSCOM and DSCI. And this report is essentially to look at giving a snapshot of what the GCC landscape is as we close 2020 and move into the next decade, how the leadership of the GCC, cyber GCC in India is actually moving up, what is the kind of workloads and security that are being managed out of here, including security.
Welcome address, Ms. Rama. Mr. William, hi. Thank you for joining us. Rama, may I request you to welcome Mr. Akhilesh for
to me and making me part of this process. I want to give you a little bit of perspective of where the World Economic Forum sees cybersecurity and why we're so actively involved in this area. So for us globally, cybersecurity is one of the most systemically important issues that's facing the global economy today. And the World Economic Forum convenes leaders and has active membership of some of the most important businesses in the world. And increasingly, their chief security officers and CEOs are they're concerned about the rising costs of cybersecurity, and they're concerned about how cybersecurity is becoming a strategic barrier to trade and putting potential friction in global trade as well. So the World Economic Forum very much views cybersecurity as a kind of systemic issue, a strategic issue that needs a global solution. And the reason why I was so excited to be part of this process is that when I started to see the innovation, the capabilities that were coming out of the GCC networks, it gave us an indication that in India, what we were seeing is policies, capabilities that were meeting the challenge of the global cybersecurity agenda. And notably, that India is providing increasingly global leadership and strategic leadership within cybersecurity. And importantly for us, is starting to address some of the skills and capability gaps that we increasingly see. Cybersecurity is not a static environment, and some of the challenges that we see, rollout of 5G technologies, the rollout of artificial intelligence, these increasing dependencies on complex technologies requires innovation and a different skill set than normal cybersecurity practices. So the GCC report, that indication that in countries we're now seeing ecosystems being built that can provide advanced capability, strategic leadership that can protect global businesses, and is starting to fill some of the skills and capability gaps in providing innovation and a scaled response, is something that we thought that was incredibly important to highlight to our community as well. So Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the session and part of the discussion, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Will, for that wonderful keynote. Now, okay, just give me 1 second. May I request Mr. Ram to take this forward and please initiate with the keynote?
Thanks, Anand. So hopefully you're able to hear me. These are exciting and challenging times, both for us, the cybersecurity community in India. I think there has been a number of life cycle, so to speak, number of stages of the life cycle, cyber maturity life cycle we are currently undergoing. I think we have crossed the stage of just operating on a day-to-day basis, making sure any threats are identified, actions are done, and then now we are into a stage of where we are doing fairly deep research, fairly advanced engineering in this particular domain, and I'm talking of building major sensor grid apparatus in terms of our cybersecurity, building SOAR capabilities. I mean, be it any of the most advanced thing we hear about in the cybersecurity world, we feel that there is something happening in one of the GCCs here, and that's pretty encouraging. And what is probably starting to happen and will happen a bit more in the coming quarters is the leadership and ownership. I think we have enough leadership and ownership in terms of event management, assessment, and those kind of things. But in terms of deep engineering, as well as cyber leadership, I think it has just started. People here have managing teams elsewhere. I think that's going to only grow, and these are exciting opportunities. And it is also imperative with that background that we have the ability to collaborate, learn from each other as GCCs, not so much in terms of competitive advantage, but more in terms of what's happening, how do we deal with certain things on a collaborative basis, and that is something which is a recurring theme for the last 6 months, 12 months, where we have in Bangalore established a small investment bank cybersecurity organization forum, and that's been pretty helpful as well. In terms of this project, I think I should thank KPMG, NASSCOM, and DSCI for providing me this opportunity to be part of this report, framing the questions and all the way through the project. Thanks very much, and looking forward to a good discussion in the next hour or so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ram. Mr. Ram is the Managing Director and Technology Risk at Goldman Sachs. Right. Now, moving forward, may I request Mr. Oscar, who is the Risk and Control Manager at Shell, to give the keynote.
I think Anand, Oscar had a challenge. I think technical issues. We should move forward.
Sure, Mr. Cheney. Yeah.
Okay. I think while Achilles comes back, I think we should probably get started with the conversation. We have a quick presentation of some of the key insights from the report. And while we discuss the key insights from the report, we would like to request everyone to come and chime in as well as have a conversation. So thanks everybody. First of all, thanks a lot Sukanya, Rama, Will, and Ram for coming in and sharing your perspectives as part of the keynote. This is fantastic. And what we'll try and do in the next 5 to 10 minutes, we'll try and set the context for the roundtable, wherein we'll try and walk you through some of the key insights from the Secure India 2020 report. We can move to the next. Right. So I think like Ram mentioned, as well as Rama also highlighted, we had very interesting and very active participation from the team members from NASSCOM, DSCI, and the World Economic Forum, and as well as the many leaders, more than about, I think, a number of leaders from various sectors who have their GCCs in India. We had more than 10 sectors participating, and we had GCCs across many cities, not only the tier 1, but also the tier 2 cities also participating. In fact, we had even some of the global CISOs also participating in this particular survey discussion as well as the process. We've got about 50 odd key insights that we've gathered through 7 sections, which we'll walk you through. And we have obviously some of the key insights as well as the leadership speak sections coming in from the GCC cyber leaders as well as some of the GCC leaders and also global CISOs that have been made made available as part of the report. So that's in terms of a quick view of what has gone into this process, which has taken more than 7 to 8 months for the team to work on this. If you can go to the next. Okay, so for the purpose of this conversation, what we tried doing is we wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the key insights, not all of them, because there are more than 50 insights and all of them are available in the report. You can go through them. But I think what we also tried doing is we tried to give a sense of what are some of the global, let's say, leaders, especially when they look at India from a cybersecurity standpoint and GCCs from a cybersecurity standpoint are looking at, and we tried to answer some of those questions as part of this particular report, which we are trying and sharing as part of this particular presentation. I understand Akhilesh is back. Akhilesh, if you're back, maybe we will pause the presentation for a minute and go for the launch before you get dropped again.
Mr. Akhilesh is here, so I would request Mr. Akhilesh Seja, Mr. Global Cybersecurity Practice Co-Leader and Head of Risk Consulting and Partner, KPMG, along with Will, Head of Future Network and Technology, World Economic Forum, Ms. Rama, CEO, DSCI, Ms. Sukanya, Director, GCC and Head, along with Mr. Ram, Managing Director, Technical Risk at Goldman Sachs. So all, if you can kindly come on stage while sharing your camera, we would love to unveil the report.
Srinivas, can we have the opening slide of the report?
Absolutely. Anand will help us with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
So welcome, Akhilesh.
I hope I stay on this time longer than 90 seconds.
Mr. Akhilesh, thank you so much for joining us. Can I hand it over to you for taking over the session? Okay, we're facing some technical difficulty at the moment. Would you like to continue with the thing, or should we wait for a couple of minutes for Mr. Akhilesh to circle back?
Let's get started. What we'll do is, Akhilesh, if you're able to hear us, we are in the cybersecurity, the digital era slide. If you're comfortable, we can get started. Okay, so what we tried doing is to look at some of the key questions that our global cyber leaders are trying to answer for their global organizations, in terms of how do we handle cybersecurity and digital risk in the current era. So we tried to answer some of those questions in the report, and we got some of them here. So the first question is, why should I look at cyber GCCs, which normally comes in at the top of everybody's mind, especially for those who do not have a presence or having GCCs in India or elsewhere. How do I actually handle ever-growing cybersecurity and digital risk with not so proportionately growing budgets? So one of the key answers that many global majors have actually tapped into is having a GCC platform and leveraging the GCCs to handle cybersecurity and digital risk for their global organizations from India and even other locations for that matter. So when we surveyed when we surveyed about, let's say, the global leaders as well as the cyber GCC leaders, and we asked this question, why cyber GCCs? Obviously, there were various responses, and the top three of those, the top three drivers for leveraging GCC model for cybersecurity were, number one, obviously, continues to be talent availability, which was the case in 2018 as well, and round-the-clock delivery. In fact, this actually has really, probably this is the single largest gainer when I compared with 2018 report, and the cost arbitrage still continues to be there, which is still, in my view, a good news. So I think these were the top three drivers that were coming in, and what was also interesting and very heartening was about 75% GCCs established after 2018 having cybersecurity functions consider innovation actually as a key driver to leverage GCC model. So there is a lot of innovation that they're doing in the cyberspace, which is very heartening to note. And interestingly, there's a lot of GCC, about 71% of them are now multi-function centers with influential leadership. So these were some of the insights that we got when we try and looked at why should someone leverage GCC platform for cybersecurity. Let me probably get some of the experts here on the call to try and share their perspectives in terms of when they have their conversations with the global boards or the global leadership or even within the industry here, what is the specific, let's say, reason that they're looking at cyber GCCs? And if you want to share any specific perspectives here, that'll be fantastic. I've seen Will sharing some very interesting perspectives from a global view standpoint. So let me invite the leaders on the call to share any perspectives here. Ram, Will, do you want to share something here?
I also see Visugan from Target if he has any inputs. Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead, Will.
Hi, sorry, just a couple of technical issues there. Yeah, maybe some interesting thoughts about when we're speaking to some of our senior leaders from our membership group. Ultimately, they're looking to provide trust in their services, and they're trying to find capabilities and manage a risk that they find increasingly complex and difficult to understand. And what they're looking for is to build capability where they can build trust in their services and have trust in who's providing those services in protecting their digital assets, which are increasingly the most important parts of their business. And I think they're looking for two or three things. One, I think they're increasingly looking for flexibility in a sense that they understand that the cyber landscape is incredibly complex, so they're wanting capabilities that can innovate and can adapt and can change. So I think that's less of a technical solution, but more of a looking at a holistic partnerships where they can have trust in building some of their services as well. And I think increasingly they're looking to invest in the long term as well. I think increasingly our senior leadership that we speak to know that this is a risk that's grown quickly, but actually in the next 10 to 20 years is going to be even bigger risk for them to manage. In fact, most of the senior leaders that we speak to actually say that cybersecurity is their biggest risk and that they'll be managing in the foreseeable future. And actually the COVID-19 report that we put out on all the global risks in the wake of the pandemic, cybersecurity was the second risk after the financial viability of their own companies. And this is a survey of the World Economic Forum's membership, so very, very senior leadership in large global organizations. And what that means is, which I think reflects in this discussion, is they're looking to invest in the long term. So they're looking for trusted partners that can innovate, have capabilities that can match the kind of changing threat landscape, but they're looking to make strategic investments over 5, 10, 15, 20 years because they know that this is a risk and a capability that they're going to have for the long term. So some reflections of some of the leadership messaging that we get about cybersecurity recently.
Mr. Ram, thank you so much for that, William. Mr. Ram, would you like to add to it? Mr. Ram, you're not audible.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would echo what was mentioned earlier. A couple of things that I thought would be interesting from our point, from Goldman Sachs experience, is also just the diversity of talent. I think that's an important factor for us. Why GCCs were considered and now accelerated in these last couple of years that our cyber capabilities building has. And also, I think the round-the-clock delivery with so many issues in terms of zero-day vulnerabilities, your ability to respond faster is a critical component of how do you set up and run cybersecurity operations. And for the round-the-clock delivery, obviously, you need either the follow-the-sun model or multiple shares. So, I mean, there are various models, and round-the-clock delivery is a critical component, and GCCs enable that quite well, and that is what has been our experience.
Thanks, Ram. That was fantastic. So, Visigan, Shobha, Akhilesh, anyone would like to add here?
Can you repeat the question once? Sorry, I had logged out. And Vipin, could you just repeat the question?
Sure, Shobha. I think we were discussing in terms of why cyber GCCs, and we shared the top 3 drivers that have come through the survey. Is there anything you would like to add here in terms of why cyber GCCs and why global majors are leveraging India-based GCCs for cybersecurity? Sukanya, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. So if you just look at the cybersecurity talent pool in India today, and you know, like we mentioned, NASSCOM has identified it as one of the future skills that we want to depend on, and we want to ensure that we build capability. On an average, it's expected to grow by 30% between 2020 and 24, right? And these are capability across all dimensions of cybersecurity, starting from development, testing, automation, platforms, tools, architecture, cloud security, all of it. And which is a significant increase. 30% is not a bad increase at all. However, if you just look at the demand is expected to grow at 45%, which means that our global counterparts are actually very, very gung-ho about setting up cybersecurity capabilities in India, and they are willing to put in more if India is able to support with the right skills and guidance. I think the core reason why cybersecurity has taken off well in India, and GCCs have been able to do a great job in terms of driving maturity. One of the things that I mentioned is that our barrier to customer connect, at least in case of cybersecurity, is actually significantly works. I mean, it works to our advantage because most companies have a significant employee base in India. So they're actually able to do a lot more pilots, drive a lot more initiatives, and see how it works within their employee base. So I think that's also been a significant driver, the fact that most companies have a set of employees. They're able to experiment with their tool strategy. Of course, capability is the key thing, without which there is no way these competencies would improve in India. Anyone else wants to add something to this?
Hi, this is Shobha. I just want to add on some of the key things that Sukanya touched on, and thanks for sharing those inputs, Sukanya. I also agree that the talent that we have in India, specifically in the information security or cyber security field, is exceptional. There's great talent here, and apart from the talent, I think the mindset or the attitude that we find in both new generation as well as experienced professionals is appreciable. So as leaders, one of the things that I see is very key is on the partnership with all the global organizations. So we hold the flag, we hold ourselves responsible and in charge of ensuring that India is recognized as the key hub wherein we find all security skills and kind of can lean in and help irrespective of what the complexity or challenges in the security space. That is what we should be looking forward to enable and make India as a security hub. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shubha, for the insight. Dr. Sriram, may I also request you to add a few words on the same?
Yes, certainly. I think GCCs have really brought in a very good dimension into our Indian ecosystem and into the global ecosystem. Because I'll tell you, here in one city, you have GCCs from very diverse sectors, from the user groups, from the technology industry, from same cybersecurity, different aspects of it, so many fields of cybersecurity. So when you have that in one place and you are holding together a forum or a meeting or so, it is very easy to get, whereas they could be spread across the world. For example, you would have Google, Microsoft, and you would have different checkpoint, all of these together, whereas elsewhere they are distributed. But here, even under one roof, you would probably find different divisions there. And when you are holding a meeting, it's easy to exchange these diverse practices and get to know. So the learning curve is much faster when you have a concentration of GCCs in India and in cities. So that really helps improve the game. They can learn from others. They can learn from for example, you have banks who have GCCs here. So they would know directly what the use cases are. And DSCI has been holding these wonderful use case clearinghouse workshops. They can contribute to those. Then the solutioning is easy. Then they can even learn from the competitors on what they are doing, best practices. So this really adds to the richness of discussion and the talent pool, of course, needless to say. So that is the reason why India has a great future. And people should, in fact, companies which do not have GCCs here should consider putting GCCs and engineering centers here. They can learn a lot, and their product quality as well as time to market significantly improves. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sriram. That was very helpful. Anyone else would like to add anything before we go to the next? Okay, let's move. So Right. So one of the key perspectives that we try to bring in through this particular survey is how is the leadership in India? Do GCCs have, do cyber GCCs have leadership potential? Are there leaders in the GCCs with focus on cybersecurity leading initiatives, not only from a GCC standpoint, but also globally? And results have been nothing short of fascinating. First of all, we got a good sense of the leverage of GCCs in terms of various cybersecurity functions. Before I move to the leadership, I just give a quick background in terms of we found that there are various functions that the GCC teams are performing here in India from a cybersecurity standpoint. And we kind of looked at them from a core, which is already existing and getting expanded. We also looked at them from a next generation standpoint, and we found that there are 5 functions that are in the top 5 across almost all the GCCs that we talked to, and these are in the space of identity and access management, third-party risk management, cloud security, and then vulnerability management, and as well as the secure development. Not only these functions are existing in good, let's say, size and scale, they are continuously getting expanded, and we have seen a growth in all of these since 2018. And then, interestingly, not only they're performing some of these existing functions and scaling them up, they're also getting ready for the next generation function. Especially all of the new emerging technologies, and also they are trying to get into a fair amount of automation in various functions. And in addition to these functions, we also found that more than 41% of the GCCs that we talked to have at least 25% of their global cybersecurity workforce in India now, which is very interesting. And then when we looked about how are global organizations getting confidence in having the cyber GCCs, let's say, perform these functions and deliver these, because this is a very, I would say, very important, let's say, development. And we found that the cybersecurity leadership talent also, which is a testament to the importance of the cybersecurity leadership that exists in GCCs. But again, I would like to throw to the forum if you have any perspectives to share here, any specific stories or anything where you want to share on how the global organizations are looking at the cybersecurity leadership, especially in GCCs, and what is in store and what you think will move further as we embrace more emerging technologies. Anyone from the forum, feel free to share your thoughts on cyber GCCs having leadership potential. I invite Mr. Visagan, Mr. Amit Prasad, Ram, and a few others to jump in. I'd also like to invite Mr. Atul Gupta also to share his perspectives.
Hi, Srini. This is Akhilesh. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Akhilesh.
Okay, thank God, and thank the Meridian platform for finally working. I will still try and avoid switching on my camera because every time I speak, I just get thrown out. I just want to come in here with some of these perspectives on what we have seen from the survey results and also the way the world is changing. I just want to come in with the following broad pointers, which based on my experience I've seen. One is the importance of India in global enterprises has already reached a level where we think that we have a seat on the table, and a number of people who run the GCC Center here are part of the global leadership. What is fascinating to see is that the two areas which have demonstrated leadership on, again, at a global scale is one is technology organization and the other is security organization. While many other aspects of process that demonstrates the importance of India as a nerve center when it comes. The role of Chief Security Officer itself is getting reinvented every 3 to 5 years. And I was speaking to a few of the colleagues the other day, and one of the things which somebody highlighted is it's not just about what you've been doing in the past, but it's about what you do in the future to optimize your investment. And he sort of brought the analogy of Chief Security Officer being equivalent to a portfolio manager. So it's like saying you got an infinite set of risks to deal with, and you got limited time and budget to do it. So how do you really take, so the role of CISO is no longer about somebody knowing the technology, somebody knowing what could go wrong, risk and business, but also about financial analyst and financial management. And that's something which I think in my view could be a great thing for us to see, because the CISO of the future are not necessarily going to be the one which were there in the past. So India, again, in my view, has an advantage for having an innovative approach to solving some of these problems. So that would be my third point. The last point I would make with respect to having the extended organization is there are going to be the 80-20 principles, where 80% of the work will be operational and 20% of work will be strategic. What it gives me confidence is that when you have feet on the table at a leadership level, you're no longer doing just the operational part, which could actually be a majority of it, but you're actually making a difference with respect to the strategic positioning. So those are the 3 or 4 points I would think. When I see the survey results, it confirms and validates our thinking that the role of the future CISO is changing, and the organizations do feel that it is important for India to be demonstrating a strong position on that transformed role of CISO.
Thanks, Akhilesh. Ram, and anyone would like to add here?
Sure. I mean, definitely the maturity curve in terms of India CISOs or India cybersecurity team being part of a global organization is going up. And what is also, I think Akhilesh referred to that, is seat on the table. We have not just few examples, but now we have a number of examples where people are part of global leadership, people who are part of global constructs like Insider Thread. I mean, these are fairly specialized committees who have specialized skills, and folks from India do participate, not just participate, but actually lead some of those conversations, and that's pretty heartening. And what is also happening, albeit may not be in too many cases, but we are do a succession planning for leaders in India. That means people feel elsewhere that again, investment in the long term is one aspect. Second is the India team has grown in terms of criticality so much that they need a full-fledged human resources ecosystem around that as well. So, which wasn't the case maybe 2-3 years back, and that has happened in these last maybe 12-18 months, and that's pretty interesting as well.
Thanks, Ram. Anyone would like to add here?
Ram, this is Akhilesh. Let me come in. As I said, that I was trying, well, first with voice and this time with video. I'm trying to be more risk taker than what I should be working in the security community. One of the challenges which does come up at times is about the cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, and cultural blending. And as you may know that different parts of the world have different culture when it comes to cybersecurity and trust. Do you think the aspect of having that, and it's not about anything being good or bad, it's just about being different. Do you think that the part of culture plays a role in terms of creating a global organization when it comes to cybersecurity?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, Ram.
Yeah, that's certainly the case in terms of cultural integration. It's a pretty important aspect of our integration. And in fact, I mean, speaking from my personal experience, there is a significant time given to the leaders in India to just make sure you are in sync, so to speak, with how committees work, how, let's say, in our case, New York thinks about certain things. And well, the basic thinking may be same in terms of my perspective and others, but in certain cases, the way you put it and the way you sell it is totally different. And that is what kind of makes a difference. And there is a lot of time given to the India management to come up with that.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree that the cultural integration has become very commonplace. Although the world has changed, but I remember many years ago, I was referred to as saying that Akhilesh, you try to speak in mathematics, you try to think in mathematics terms and speak in English, and sometimes that creates a challenge. So how do you also think and speak in the same language can be an interesting part. Sorry, back to you, Srini.
No, I'm good. Srini?
Thanks, Ram. Anyone else would like to add here? Otherwise, Akhilesh, I would like you to take this forward.
I'll wait for people to raise their hand, but I'm sure this is an interesting topic which all of us can discuss. Okay, why don't we move on in the interest of time to the next topic which we have. The third topic which we wanted to pick up was the cybersecurity and the digital risk workforce in general. And what we have seen is that there's a significant rise when it comes to different types of skills. Now, the world of technology industry is never dull. We tend to reinvent the wheel every time and sometimes push the boundaries way too high. So as we see right now, the three big skills which are in rise and high demand is one is on cloud security. The second one is to deal with product and automation. And third, which sounds simple yet extremely complex, is how do you do a risk assessment? And risk assessment can take different shape and form, but to do a truly quantitative risk assessment is a big challenge. And most people kind of came with the same validation that the market demand for some of these skills is the biggest challenge. And while as much as we would like to say that India has tons of talent, which I think I'm a proud Indian, I would like to believe, but the ability to find the talent for some of those emerging areas can be quite challenging. In fact, I was talking to one of the other friends, and she mentioned once saying that India also has the problem of plenty. And it's like saying that when you have a smaller stack, you can find the right thing. It sometimes can be when you're looking for niche or hot skill, it could sound like finding a needle in the haystack. And the other way I would like to explain is that when you have too much choice of talent, then you get more confused. So there's a very interesting experiment, I think, conducted by Sheena Iyengar and group, which basically says that they put in 3 or 4 different flavors of jam in a superstore, and in another superstore they put 36 flavors of jam. Now, as one would imagine, that variety attracts us to do something different. So the superstore, which had fewer number of jams, actually had less visitor to the table compared to the table, which had 36 options to choose from. But interestingly, when you look at the sales data, the people who had access to just 3 or 4 jams actually ended up buying more jams than those who had access to 36 jams. And when they were asking, why did that happen? People said that I just got confused. So I think we also have in India the talent abundance, which is a great advantage, sometimes can also be a big challenge for us to find exactly the right talent. So again, bringing back from the experience of talking to many of the colleagues like yourself here on the call, is that I continue to feel that talent is a challenge. Of course, we have done a good job with respect to nurturing that talent. So I would again go back to the findings of the survey. Most people felt that they have been able to create talent. So it's hard to find ready talent, but when you have the right kind of institutional processes, you are able to build and develop talents. So that's really the first part of it. The second part of the challenge is about diversity. I'll come to that in a few moments, because I think that's another very interesting topic which we have done a fair bit of research on at KPMG. But let me pause here and invite some comments. What do you think, and if anybody would like to come in here and say, what do you think are some of the toughest skills to find when it comes to cybersecurity in Indian market, and what are you doing to overcome that challenge?
Hi, this is Shobha. I will share my perspective. I handle different kinds of teams, and one of the biggest challenges I find where it's difficult to find talent is with respect to the development teams. So engineers who are good in the engineering background as well as having skills on security domain is really hard to find. And that the mindset of having that development background with security domain is one of the biggest challenges that I feel which is lacking in the industry. And that is where the gap is. And in order to kind of bridge this gap, one of the things, as most of the respondents have responded in the survey, is to do in-house training. So we get good developers and kind of bring them on board and offer them sessions or trainings or I would say competitive certifications which help to bring them up to speed on the security domain skills. And then, of course, some of the external sessions or trainings that are done for the young minds is also kind of helping to bridge that gap, bridge the gap. And then with respect to the laterals whom we get in, whom we try to fill in the engineering kind of positions, again, we see a shortage of developers with engineering background. And I believe once we are able to reach out to various academic institutions and bring in more courses, like what DSCI is doing with respect to Cyber Shiksha or those kinds of initiatives, will actually help us to build a great talent who will have security from their graduation itself. It could be an undergraduate program or a postgraduate program, and then probably that will help us to have the skills that we are looking for over a period of time.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Shobha, for that insight. I think you captured it well, that getting the combination of developer skills and cybersecurity is certainly a challenge. And I would say from my experience, not just in India, I think it's a big global challenge. Because those who actually, it's like saying, again, I might be exaggerating and oversimplifying and generalizing this thing. You got kind of two different mindsets. Most people with developer mindset are working with saying that, how do I just make it work? Whereas people who come with the security saying that, how do I make sure that it doesn't break? So sometimes converging the two mindsets itself can be a challenge, even when you find people who can do two kinds of things. It's like in saying in many ways, people who are cricket umpires are certainly not the great cricketers, and I being an example of one. I'm a certified umpire, but I don't think I can really do a good job with either batting or bowling. So I think that's one big challenge which we see, that the two skills. But with the advent of DevOps, I think it has become imperative for us to not treat them as two different streams. The world of somebody doing development and somebody doing even testing, not just security but functional testing and all of that, has now converged. So no longer you have people who do development and who do testing. It's like everything is inline in DevOps. So how do we get to the DevSecOps or SecDevOps, whichever you call it, is actually another way. And I think here India can take a pole position, because as I said, that this problem is not just India, it's a global problem. We can take a pole position because the amount of innovation we are building in the code creation, low code, and some of those areas, if we combine it with our cybersecurity challenge, you talk about the Cyber Shiksha and others, I think we have another opportunity to make India a strong place in this space.
Sure. Just one point I wanted to add in terms of where do we feel challenged in terms of skills. Obviously, deep engineering capabilities is something that we feel there is a bit of shortage, and we are doing that with training and upgrading our core network security engineering folks into this space. But the second aspect which we feel is also something that we need to work on in terms of talent building is around risk advisory for businesses. I think most of our folks are very, very good in terms of technology, in terms of deploying things, running things, etc. But when it comes to partnership with businesses, partnership with various teams outside your own technical team, in terms of making businesses understand, giving them a flavor of what constitutes an acceptable risk, why something that they should look at it. I think that is where we need a bit more work to do in terms of how do we nurture that kind of talent. It's not just consulting with the divisions, it's much more than that. You become a partner of that particular division. So when like for GS experience, I say when we looked at digital bank, we had like 2 or 3 really, really solid folks who were part of the digital bank project itself, who were through and through, and they were like pretty well business savvy in terms of what is happening in the business, why something should or should not be done. I think those kind of elements are important too, and that is where we have some work to do as well.
Ram, thank you so much for bringing that aspect. Most time we get overwhelmed with the newer technologies and development of skill and investment therein. But something as fundamental as risk management is actually another thing which is changing very fast without us realizing that it's changed, because it doesn't have like it's not as tangible as sometimes some parts of technology could be. And again, what we have seen is to get a good blend of somebody who understands the technology, business, and risk, which is kind of an intersection point, is very hard to find. And more importantly, unlike the way you can teach something, the technology, which is largely deterministic, so you can tell me how to write a code in Python, but it's not very easy to codify the knowledge of risk management. And that's something which comes with a combination of learning through the knowledge and education, making certain experiential learnings, and also being coached and guided through the process. So I think it's another area which is generally underinvested, and large corporations actually are investing a whole lot in that area. In fact, there's a huge development happening in the area of using AI to do better risk management, although it's not something which has been proven very effectively in most cases yet, but that could be another area for us to look. But clearly, if I were to kind of just pivot a little bit on that subject, and I will invite comments from the others, I'll be a little bit provocative, if you don't mind, is sometimes we think that we apply controls for the sake of applying controls, and cybersecurity professionals have actually been blamed for putting in a lot of effort and investment, which is very hard to justify. And that's the concept of, how do you draw the balance between what is the risk which you're covering versus what is the reward you have. So we at KPMG actually created what we call the line of ideal defense, which basically says that there's a cost of a control and there's a value of control. And as long as you keep the cost of control much closer to the value of control, you are in good shape. If you keep the cost of control way too high, and you're actually managing risk because you really don't know whether something could have gone wrong or not, but you don't know whether you're over-investing. So for example, and I'll just be a little bit provocative here, most of the GCCs and other companies in outsourcing world actually invested huge amount of time, money, and resources to build physical security controls. And when I have been through those buildings many times, and I can tell you, if I have not told somebody that I'm going to turn up with a laptop, it could take as long as 15 minutes for people to just walk in and get to meet somebody. Now with COVID, overnight, we all said, okay, great, we'll all work from home. Now, the amount of time, energy, effort, investment which we did in that entire physical access control environment is gone. Poof. They don't exist today. And the world still goes on. It's not that the world has, so I'm not for a moment suggesting that those physical controls were not effective or not relevant or not valuable, but I'm saying that there is a need for us to have the right balance, and sometimes we tend to overvalue things which we can see versus undervalue things which we can't see. So the risk management being that little bit, I would say, fuzzy concept, it's hard to create that knowledge at right level. So that's something which I wanted, if anybody has a reaction to that, I just wanted, in fact, I went and told one of my clients, saying that, you have over-invested on physical security by 3x. They didn't like it, but maybe now if they're listening to me, they will be happy with my comment. Okay, let me just turn to the second part of this third trend which you're talking about, which is about diversity. And happily and pleasantly for us to hear that about 88% people said that diversity was key for them to build cybersecurity talent, which is great news. And I think we all believe there is no two ways about it, that diversity does bring effectiveness. And it's not just about gender diversity, which can be very obviously visible, but it's a diversity about backgrounds, diversity about age, diversity about thought. So it could be many, many things. So most people, with the exception of few, actually believe that diversity is key. But when we actually look at it, this being a great desire versus it being put in practice, we find there's a gap. So while as much as we would like to deal with diversity, but we are not able to see that thing getting translated on ground. And I want to invite here, once I finish, Will to also talk about it, because we did a research in the UK on decrypting diversity, and we found some very interesting trends there as well. But one of the challenges which I would like to highlight, that if we believe that diversity is important, and if we are not able to do anything about it for a fair bit of time, it creates a challenge, saying that it's an unsolvable problem. Whereas those who actually solved it to some degree are finding that once you start the journey, you can get there better than what you would be without not being able to. In addition to the gender diversity, which remains as a challenge, another aspect of diversity which we want to highlight is the world of cybersecurity is becoming so much more multidisciplinary. And again, the World Economic Forum has done some studies around that, say that the future skills for cybersecurity are not just about technology, are not just about knowing the industry of business. Is about creativity, problem solving, human resources, interaction, personal skills, and all of that. And I've done some dipstick checks with some of the clients I work with. Now we all are, and I think many of you would agree that people are one of the significant part of the cybersecurity challenge. And most of us do a good job of training those people, but not adequate. But if I were to ask those people, saying, okay, you have a challenge, say you need to deal with people, but how many people in our cybersecurity teams come from humanities background? I get a very poor answer. And how many people actually even come from a music background? Because that might be able to create an interesting diversity. Because I'm not a trained musician, but I know a lot of people who are. The amount of creativity and the teamwork they bring is very different. So the question which I want to throw to the group here is saying that, what do you think is the way we could potentially solve this diversity challenge? Because we can't live with it for too long, because the world of tomorrow will not be solved by the skills which we used in the past. In fact, we at KPMG have created a very strong program around it, and we say for solving tomorrow's cybersecurity problem, we got to have an uncommon combination of skills, which we don't have today. So let me pause here and invite maybe Will, if you can come in first, to talk about how do you see the issue of diversity and what could we do to solve it?
Sure. Thank you, Akhilesh. Yeah, absolutely. So you've highlighted one of the very first reports that's actually been done across actually all the countries and governments that we work with, which was obviously the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre and KPMG's Decrypting Diversity report that was published last year, which was a in-depth study about the diversity issue in the UK cybersecurity market. And I think it's important to say why diversity is important in the first place. Firstly, of course, it's incredibly important to make sure that we've got respect from our colleagues, etc., and that we're treating everybody and providing an environment and workplace that has respect and is inclusive. But secondly, diverse workforces just produce better products, services, and deliver better for a whole host of reasons, different perspectives, they build better teams, etc. And what we found within the UK was that actually the workforce is still around 70-30%. So we still have kind of like a massive kind of issue with trying to promote female representation in the workforce. But actually, the UK we think is pretty good. And actually, we're thinking as a market, it's actually been promoting some very, very good incentives to be able to promote diversity. Some of those are formal incentives, but there's some great schemes that have been produced in the UK, Girls Who Code, there's great academic programs as well. The National Cybersecurity Centre spent a lot of time in research and engagement with universities, making sure that there are active participation in those programs where they actively recruit from as well. But we do think that this as a community is one of the biggest issues and challenges that we have to face. Because your point about what are the cybersecurity skills of the future is incredibly important, because it's not just about having the technical and engineering skills anymore. And obviously they're heavily, those tend to heavily be tied to certain types of background. Increasingly, cybersecurity is about technology. It's about security policies. It's about integration in business. It's about finance. It's about governance. But increasingly as well, it's about public policy, and it's about international relations. So we have to make sure that the industry that we're building is a safe, attractive place for all types of people to be able to join. And, you know, we actually might need to see much more concrete policies from governments and innovations like we see in the GCCs, you know, where we're trying to really promote diversity, because actually it's for the health and for the benefit of our entire community that we get this right. And the fact that the UK is one of the only places that's actually put out the report actually shows we've got a bit of an issue, because we actually don't even have the right data to work out how big a problem we've got. I think we all recognise that we've got a problem, but until we start getting some of those better metrics, so it's going to be very, very difficult to start decrypting that. So very, very important point, and I was really pleased that when I saw that in the report, that this is something that started to be recognised as an issue. Just as a very, very kind of simple thing that we do at the World Economic Forum, and all our panels, all our events that we do has to have at least some female representation for the cybersecurity community. And it's just a little thing that you can instigate as like a local policy, and it's an indicative of, I think, how many of us are trying to recognise how we do this better. But the question is what policies scale, and how are you going to scale those policies?
I have a pointer. Particularly on this, very good points, William. I mean, we do scan, you know, what is happening in cybersecurity skills development in other countries. I agree with you. There's a lot to learn from other countries, particularly in. These are published job roles. It's possible there are some we don't have public info about it. These are from the public portals, LinkedIn and all of that. We have used an AIML platform. I think my team is going to publish the report on the website maybe next week. So 18%, and by job role we've been able to get a sense of what is the demand, and you know, at what levels of seniority also. So I think that will give us a good insight on where is the gap and where do we need to invest.
Thank you, Rama, for that insightful way of what the statistics looking for the job roles coming largely from GCC. And I'm not surprised, because GCC is continuously raising the bar, as we saw even in the previous slide, that the kind of skills which are now being deployed in India to solve big global problems. And I personally can say that even for KPMG Global, we are using a lot of talent in India to solve problems for many of our global clients. So it is certainly a place where we have. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and I love the microphone, but I don't want to overuse it. Anybody else who would like to come on this topic of diversity? Else, we move on to the next, which is on innovation. All right. So that's the next topic I wanted to talk about briefly is on innovation. Before I talk about innovation per se, I do want to talk about India is known as a country of jugaad. For those of you who are joining from non-native Hindi cases, it basically has been classified as a frugal innovation or getting things to work without having to make huge effort and investment. I think that is part of our DNA, that is part of our culture. And also in many ways, we have demonstrated creating innovative solutions right from building one of the world's most economical mission to space and many other areas. So it's something which comes to us naturally, and in India we see a huge amount of innovation happening. It's innovation at scale and innovation at a fairly frugal investment. What we heard from the GCC is that about 70% of the GCC survey highlighted that they were already doing something to do with AI or planning to do artificial intelligence when it comes to solving cybersecurity problems. So Rama, when you mentioned that the team is doing that to scrape profiles from LinkedIn and other sources, it's becoming a commonplace. We also saw, which is an interesting trend, that about half of the GCCs are either using or planning to use open source for cybersecurity. That's an interesting trend compared to the same thing which we did in 2018. The number in 2018 was much lower. But what is more interesting is that there is a 37% increase compared to the last time when we did the survey on GCCs using innovation as a key driver for driving things secure in India. So we've seen extreme growth in this space, and many of them have actually talked about in private conversation about what kind of things they're doing. And some of these emerging technologies which you're using here are right there on the left side of the screen. The question which I wanted to kind of pose to the group is there a belief we have that diversity can actually help propel innovation? And this is something which I'm sure the general wisdom will say yes, because when you have diverse ideas, you're likely to look at a problem from a different angle. But is there some story, is there something which you believe has proven the point that diversity for the sake of diversity means nothing, but if you bring in diversity of thoughts, ideas, cultures, and other ways, we might become more innovative, which are desirous. Any thoughts around that? Okay. Amit, you have a point of view here? I know we have spoken about this topic in the past. Okay, looks like, yeah. Will, do you have a point to make here?
Yes, I'd be interested in this. When I looked at the report and about the types of innovation, I very much saw this as a, really key kind of like short, mid-term challenges like security challenges, cloud security orchestration, kind of the rollout of IoT and 5G and increased dependency. I mean, given that we increasingly think India is going to be delivering global capability and global innovation, and it's critical for the global cybersecurity ecosystem. I had kind of some thoughts whether, what about some of the maybe longer term security challenges that might be emerging and where we're seeing innovation, particularly around things such as quantum security, distributed identity, and next generation identity access management, particularly when a lot of use cases coming out in that space as well. So I think that was an open question, which is, are we too focused maybe on those short to medium term innovation challenges, and how do you take on some of those big picture strategic security challenges that are coming along that are actually going to need real intellectual and kind of like capability horsepower as well, such as quantum?
Understand. Yeah, in fact, innovation can mean different things to different people, and I've seen in many cases. One of the areas when, again, in the interviews which we did, we figured out is innovation also calls for failures. So it's not easy. And we've seen that some people are trying to innovate in a controlled or safeguarded environment. And that's something which we hope to see change in the future, where people would necessarily be able to make bolder innovation. And especially in the area of cybersecurity, I see 2 or 3 things converging. So again, the strength of India when it comes to automation and engineering, the strength of India in terms of trying to bring 2 or 3 different skills to work together because we are all in one place, is one of the ways by which we could do. Clearly, I do think that bringing people from diverse backgrounds, I did talk about, I've had the experience of working with people with different capabilities and expertise, like people who are artists or musicians and others, and they've been able to solve the problem way differently compared to what I have been able to look at this point. So I think this is really interesting. Sukanya, let me put you on a spot for a moment here. Do you have any thoughts with respect to, I know you chase the agenda for talent in a big way. How do you think the future of innovation looks like here?
Hi, Akhilesh. I will talk in general. I will not talk in specific to cybersecurity per se. But in general, I think there are more than enough proven research of how diversity of thought propagates innovation, propagates cooler ideas. I think in general, when you have people with different experiences and different exposure and different skill sets addressing the same problem together, you bring in different perspectives. And I think a lot of innovation happens when different perspectives come together. For example, I was in a discussion with a leader, a CEO of a large Indian enterprise, and he told me that going forward, he expects about 30 to 40% of fresh graduates that he hires every year to not be from the STEM background. Now, this is a tech company. They said that his fresh graduates, 30 to 40%, he's not going to hire from STEM background. He's going to hire people from design background who've gone to design schools and may have done furniture design for all you know. He is going to hire people who have learned history and who've learned English and who've learned political science. Because just problem solving and bringing in your different knowledge and experiences help you look at your problems very differently. And I don't believe that cybersecurity is going to be anything different. We can apply very similar principles. So when you bring people who've had different experiences, you automatically bring different perspectives and you find simpler ways of doing things.
I couldn't agree more with you that we need more and more such leaders who invest in diverse backgrounds beyond STEM. On a lighter note, I must tell you that the people who are going to work in GCC at some stage are also trying diversity for different reasons. I ended up meeting with one of my friends whose son was to choose which stream he should go and do his undergrad. And he came and told me saying, my son really wants to do physical training. I said, that why would you like to put him to physical training? I know I don't want to typify, but maybe something with engineering, science, medical, that background. And he says, yeah, he's a very focused guy. He says, I want to get a job as soon as possible. So if I take physical training, my chances of getting good grades are higher. And these days, anyways, companies, they come and they shortlist based on this score. So I have a higher chance of getting selected in a GCC or an IT company or something. If I hire marks, who cares whether I study mechanical engineering or physical training? So I hope we get more diversity for those reasons where people are gaming the system to say, what is this stream which gets me the highest grades? And hopefully I'll get in there sooner. All right, that's my take on to this one, but clearly innovation will certainly get propelled with diversity. Let's move on to the next topic, which I think Ram sort of teed off a little bit, which is about the risk culture. And this, in my view, is one of the toughest areas. And as you can evaluate a lot of people on how good or bad they are when it comes to their technical knowledge, it is hard for us to determine that before we attract talent as to how good or bad they are with respect to risk management capability. Now, I'll invite Ram with more deeper comments here, but clearly we are seeing that a lot of boards are expecting companies to produce dashboards which are able to give views of not what happened, but what is likely to happen. Not to tell how many events did I block, but how much of risk did I mitigate. So creating this sense of risk culture where people are able to actually understand what is the risk level and what does it take to remain protected is becoming important. Having said that, it is still a very difficult thing to bring the right balance in terms of where the most risks are and where the most efforts going. I still see a lot of companies investing a fair bit of things at a disproportionate level. For example, one of my favorite statistics, which is about most companies spend over 80% of their time and money in protecting from bad things from happening. And only 20% or less time, money, and investment is actually going on figuring out when something goes bad, how did it go bad, and what could we have done, and can we prevent and react to it. So the disproportionate investment on prevention versus detection and reaction has been a problem of the past and is continuing. So now maybe invite you here. What do you think are the big deals which the GCC CISOs are staying away for? What are the big risk issues, and how do you plan to foster that culture? Are there any interesting ways to continue to drive? How do we become more and more risk-oriented rather than just technology-oriented?
Yeah, sure. I think what you mentioned in terms of risk culture is paramount, and especially when you have a large footprint with number of products, projects, programs happening in GCC. It may sound a bit cliche, but getting the top guys involved is the only way. So from our point of view, we have tried something called as Culture and Conduct Committee, where we look at how the risk culture can be kind of brought into the lowest level possible, right at the analyst level. And when we have to, let's say, accept some risk, like who can accept risk? Why some risk should be accepted? And do people even know what do they actually mean when they say they accept the risk? Are they aware of the consequences? So there is a significant effort that we have put in terms of making people understand when you risk accept, these are the 5 things it means, that you are increasing the risk burden on the organization, you are doing A, B, C, D, E. That actually happens right when in the system when he is accepting the risk. So he or she is accepting the risk. So we believe it's a very, very important aspect of how do you manage security. And we also believe it is slightly underinvested. We have taken baby steps towards that and feel pretty encouraged about the results we are seeing.
Thank you. And I think this is, we are all taking baby steps because it's never been easy to create a culture like this. But one of the things which I have seen, there's a very interesting study which I read. It said that how do we solve a human problem with a human solution? Because a large part of risk is also coming not because of the technology, but because of human. And what are the various ways by which you could do it? In fact, one of the good advice I have learned over time is to have focus on communication skills in cybersecurity teams. Because one of the things which you do a great job is knowing what the risks are. But when it comes to communicating those risks, either to the senior executives or to people who actually should be able to frontline in reducing those risks, we sometimes are not able to do that great job. So creating communication capabilities which are able to simplify the message and are able to get it across is one of the interesting areas. A lot of our
sorry, just 1 or 2 points. Communication certainly is a very important aspect, as is ability to influence and persuasion skills. These are, I think, key attributes for a successful CISO.
Absolutely, Ram. And I've seen you for many years, and I can tell you it's no wonder that you are doing a good job being in this very difficult and challenging position, because I think you created some nice blend of those skills for yourself. I hope many others are able to kind of adapt with everything, because that's clearly becoming a challenge. As you continue to grow, you've got to see it's not just about what is the right thing to do, but also communicating what is the right thing to do. And these roles are hardly individual contributors, and they are more of influencer roles. And interestingly, I would say the world of cybersecurity is also seeing a big shift. And I just pick a cue on Ram, you talked about from a GS perspective, and I'm not bringing the company specific here, but a lot of people are saying that the world of financial services is moving towards technology, and there's a lot of things moving. So fintech is disrupting the financial services. But on the other hand, if you look at it, the majority of the CISOs which are being hired by the large tech companies are coming from financial services background. And Phil being another recent example of joining Google, is basically saying that while fintech might be disrupting financial services, it's the financial services CISOs which are likely to create the future of technology companies' cybersecurity strategy. So with that, let me move on to the next topic, which is also equally interesting. And if we talk about the next topic, which is something which we have seen develop in the area of how do we create an ecosystem. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. Yeah, so how do we create an ecosystem? And this is one area where I will just quickly go through the findings and request an action here for the community. Unlike many of the other global players, we see the Indian GCC have something to catch up here, is how do we partner with the ecosystem? And the ecosystem being academia, looking at working with the other GCC which you're doing, and startups, and working with government bodies. I think we've got about a fourth of the people saying that they are doing this job effectively. Many of them said that they've tried but haven't been very successful. But clearly this would be one area where I would think that no entity can find all problem solution on its own, because many of these problems are far-reaching and require different capability. So having access to talent, thought leadership, problem-solving capabilities, I think it's a good idea for us to increase the access to the ecosystem. So let me invite Srini here. Srini is somebody who is part of the team here and has worked with creating a broader innovation around the ecosystem. And he works with some of the financial services, GCC, on how they co-create some of these areas by using the power of ecosystem. And you don't have to, and in fact, this is one area, and I would like to highlight from my personal experience, people are far more willing to share anonymously when it comes to cybersecurity. I don't think that any company would like to treat cybersecurity as a competitive advantage. You wouldn't have heard any airline producing an advertisement saying, you should fly us because we are the safest airline in the world. That's not the way people actually, so the cybersecurity, the trust, the capability, sense of security, resilience, these are the methods by which you actually create a sense of trust and not create one-of-a-kind threat. So the ability for the industry to share is much higher. I think we just need to create an ecosystem around that. So Srini, do you want to come in here with your perspective?
Sure, Akhilesh. I think many of the GCC leaders on the call are experiencing this, especially what I'll just go and share. I see that especially in the last 3 to 4 years, and some of the leaders and also can talk about this. When the industry comes together and when the GCC cyber leaders come together and share specific examples of innovation, in fact, not only just innovation, but especially the challenges, as well as some of the leading practices which obviously lead to the innovation, and leverage of the innovation that has already been done elsewhere. I think that's where the power of the, let's say, group or the community coming together and having an ability to leverage or cross leverage what has already been done is really coming to the fore. I've seen GCCs coming together and having specific conversations on what are the top challenges and what are some of the very interesting examples of solutions that have actually worked for those challenges, and then they being leveraged in other their own GCCs after they hear from some of the mature ones has really helped, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. Again, probably here I would definitely love for some of the GCC cyber leaders to comment. Ram, do you want to come in here, and anyone else on the forum also please do come in.
Ram, you're on mute.
I would only echo what Akhilesh said. We have tried in terms of building the ecosystem. In some areas we have been successful, but in few others we haven't been. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and I think the survey also kind of reflects that we need to do a lot more. In terms of startups, I think we do a better job, more so because it also has some partnership with our investment division, etc. So there is a bit more leverage, a bit more collaboration there. But in terms of academia, I think from my experience and talking to few others in the GCCs, they have made some efforts, but it's been a mixed bag, so to speak.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Ram, that startups have done a good job, academia has a little bit. I would think that maybe it's a two-way problem. Not to be kind of generalizing, but I think the quality of research from academics in India has to also improve, because there's a lot which can be done by using fundamental research, looking at some of these new ways. I've been associated with WEF for many years, and I think that the kind of academic, institute, industry, government, multi-stakeholders communication and learning they've been able to create is fascinating. I think it's also onus on us as industry to kind of go back and create those kinds of platforms for academic institutions, because I'm sure all of us have come from schools which have great research capabilities, but I don't know whether they're really dealing with the right kind of problems. And if there's a way for us to feed the problem, co-create the solution, maybe we'll get better at it compared to where we are right now. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and therefore I'll move to the last chapter of the work which we have done here along with all the GC players, is how we did in COVID-19. And I'm sure all of us have been pleasantly surprised with ourselves, and now it's kind of become a way of life. And the survey results were no different. Everybody worked very well. In fact, I would also say that some of these fears which we had have not really been that enlarged. So there is a lot more resilience in the entire system compared to what we could have been. So very happy with the way results came, but also in reality. I would also congratulate the entire cyber community within the GCC, because I think they have done a great job in working at war speed, enabling millions of people to work from home and without having any kind of technology glitch of a significant scale or a major cyber incident. So I do believe that the survey results confirm, but also many of the findings from NATCOM and other communities clearly tell us that the industry is and continue to remain very resilient to some of those things. But if I were to just pick up on the aspect relating to the cyber security, and I was having a friendly chat with another colleague in the industry, is nobody had thought that all the work which we do sitting behind large cyber operation centers could actually be done in a truly decentralized work from home mode. I'm sure we all felt that yes, if you have to do some software development, or if you have to process some invoice, or if you have to do certain things, yeah, people can work from home. But how do you operate a full-fledged cyber operation center in a 100% distributed work from home kind of environment? And that's been a pleasant revelation for many. And in fact, in some ways, I was thinking that maybe it's also asking a different challenge thing. Was it investment all that worth it to create those high quality infrastructure and putting people at one place? So that's where another day's interesting conversation. But I continue to believe that the GCC did a good job, and that is another reflection that it's not something which is fledgling. It clearly is a very strong founded base, and I do feel, despite the number of cyber attacks having multiplied, all of you would have read the Interpol report, which talked about the number of fake websites, fake domain names, phishing email. That network traffic just went through the roof. Yet we were able to kind of move. In fact, there's one kind of very interesting point which we have debated in another smaller group, and I'll be happy to get some views of the experts here. Some people believe that while the COVID has created an increase in potential risk profile of a corporation, because now there are a number of endpoints which may not be as patched as they would have been. Number of people are working in not so securely enclosed location and working from other places. So the risk pattern on getting infected has increased, but because everybody is working on a decentralized mode and we are not on one large local area network, the speed of infection has been slow. So while the risk increased, but the spread of that risk has been more contained because of work from home. I don't think if there's a credible study on that one, but I'll be interested if somebody has a thought saying that if the risk of spreading an infection has decreased because of COVID and all working from home. Okay. I assume that's a topic which one doesn't want to take a pick at, but I think that's we will never know, because some of these things is very hard for us to get. All right. Abhishek, is that you coming in?
Yeah, Akhilesh, I just wanted to quickly connect these 2 points of innovation and resilience. We recently finished a large hackathon exercise with a larger ecosystem of academia and startup, and many banks also participated in it. The result was the solution which came out of that hackathon, which is a larger ecosystem of GCCs from Australia. They were able to solve a couple of problems of headquarters sitting in India. Now, the theme was resilience. While these resilience related teams were able to give solution in short term, in the longer term, they have also added some anti-fragility, because while the resiliency is to go back to normal as soon as possible, but some of these solutions for future also gonna give an edge to the GCCs, make sure that the headquarters actually is resuming operation faster in case of a similar pandemic in future.
That's an interesting point, and I think this whole part about anti-fragility is a very interesting concept when it comes to how do you build resilience. So thank you Abhishek for coming. Hackathon is another way by which many GCCs are actually trying to fuel automation, fuel innovation at scale. So I've been part of some of them, and I think they've delivered great results. All right. Okay, so with that, I bring you to the end of the survey which we did. We divided that into 7 different chapters dealing with each of the themes. I feel extremely excited to see the results because they confirm many of our findings and also create some new opportunities for us to think and build on that. As Rama mentioned, I can't thank everybody enough who have participated in this survey and made it a very enriching report. I'm personally much more confident when I look at the survey results now that what we thought is a reality is actually reality. And also some interesting concept coming in from attrition, which I think is going in the right direction, and our ability to build talent. So with that, let me thank everyone and bring Srini to kind of talk about what's been his experience and how do we take it from here.
Sure, Akhilesh. I really want to thank everyone who's participated today, especially Rama, Akhilesh, Sukanya, Ram, and all the GCC leaders and all the participants for coming in. I just want to ensure that I really take a moment and thank a very, very wonderful team which has been working on this for the last 7 to 8 months. I definitely don't want to miss doing that. So first of all, let me thank Anand from DSCI. He has been real driver behind this particular effort, along with Manoj from KPMG. I also want to thank Dr. Sriram from DSCI. Of course, I don't have to mention Rama for all her guidance and support, and I've seen her joining many of the sessions where she has reviewed personally all the work that we've been doing. That was a phenomenal drive from DSCI. Similarly, I would like to thank the team from NASSCOM. In fact, Sukanya, Achita have been pretty much involved on everything that we've been doing, and they had a fantastic team in terms of Namita and Ranjita helping from NASSCOM, and they were really helpful in terms of connecting us with the GCC community, as well as also clearing out any specific challenges that have been coming in the process. Let me also thank Will from World Economic Forum. He has been very supportive. With no notice, we have reached out to him, and he has been very instrumental in getting a lot of perspectives. In fact, he's personally participated in reviewing as well as conceptualizing some of the survey-related activities and the process thereafter. And again, I would like to thank, I can't thank enough Ram as well as Oscar, especially Ram has really been instrumental right from the start, right up to the survey publishing. And Oscar has done a phenomenal help and guidance right through the process. And Oscar is from Shell. And I also can't really miss thanking every industry leader who has actually helped us. In fact, some of them have joined today on the call. We have Shobha from Walmart, we have Amit from Swiss Re, we have Visigan from Target. Many of them have actually joined. I'm not able to thank each one of them by their name, but really they've been very helpful. And last but not least, I would like to thank Akhilesh and Atul from KPMG leadership for helping us drive this particular initiative. And it is absolutely a lot of hard work from Manoj, Karan Chawla, Susmita, Sangram, Sanjana, Divya, and actually Ravi Jayanti from our KPMG UK team, along with Srijit and Pranav, which has really made this particular initiative a real success. In the report, thankfully, has got launched today with a wonderful leadership on the forum. I would like to thank everybody. If I missed someone, absolutely sorry for that. I would like to thank everybody for making this possible. Let me stop there. Over to you, Anand. Rama, you were saying something. Feel free to
Thank you, Shri, for the kind. But may I request Rama to take this forward on the thank you note?
So thank you, KPMG team, particularly led by Srinivas, Manoj, Sangram, and there's a much bigger team, and of course Akhilesh and Atul from the KPMG leadership team. William, you've heard the entire insights from the research report. We from NASSCOM and DSCI are looking for ambassadors like you to promote India as a destination for cyber GCCs in any forum that you talk in across the world. I think we are here to support more global corporations to invest and expand in India. Thank you for taking the time and also for your insights. We'll take your point on if there are some learnings from UK in skills development. We will surely look at that. But thank you for joining us. And all the GCC leaders, there were more than 70, 80 senior leaders who took time and effort to respond to our survey, provide their insights, also talk to the KPMG team. I would like to thank them because our research reports are just as good as the insights that come from the industry members. So we will be, my team and the KPMG team and also Sonia from NASSCOM, will be outreaching the report to all of you. Please do share it with all your team members and anybody in your global corporations. Internally, if any GCC wants a briefing on the insights for this report, my team and the KPMG team will be happy to set up follow-up one-on-one calls. Because often when we release a research report, people do ask us for a briefing for their team so that the broader team understands what are the insights and the trends that we are noticing. We are happy to set up those follow-up calls to be able to brief any team that is looking for a briefing. We'll have Srinivas and team, and Anand and my team will go on, or of course. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us at our 15th edition of Annual Information Security Summit. Today is our third day. There's a very rich session, almost 250 speakers we are hosting in this 3-day conference, and more than, I think, 50 or 60 sessions, including a lot of deep dive sessions. Several of the GCC speakers have been speaking in the last 2 days. Today also some of them lined up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sukanya. And Mr. Ram.
Thank you, everyone. And we also have the report link on the public chat in case you wish to go and download. Please feel free to. And once again, thank you, everyone. If you want, we can explore the rest of the AISS plenary sessions with the other link. And yeah, we'll be closing the session soon.
Excellent.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the industry leaders, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Srini. Thank you, Shobha. Thank you, Mitra.
Thank you. Thanks, Ram. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.